Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vision Cast. Joel Penton here, founder and CEO of LifeWise Academy. And for the big picture section of this Vision Cast, I want to talk a little bit about leadership. In fact, the don'ts and do's of leadership. I had the honor to preach recently at my home church here in Hilliard, Ohio, and I was assigned to preach out of 1 Peter chapter 5. And here's one of the sections, or one of the parts that I was preaching out of. And so a lot about leadership. This is church leadership, but it applies to all sorts of leadership. Here's what it says in 1 Peter chapter 5. So I exhort the elders among you as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight. And now here we're going to get into the don'ts and do's of leadership. He says, he said, shepherd the flock, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And I just thought this was such a helpful lesson in leadership, this kind of threefold don'ts and do's of leadership. And so I thought I'd just walk through them with you, because if you're watching this, you're in the LifeWise universe, and there's a good chance that you are a LifeWise leader. Maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a director, or maybe you're thinking about it. You're thinking about starting a LifeWise. You're thinking about getting involved. And I think that these three lessons can be very helpful. The first thing he says is not to lead under compulsion. Don't lead under compulsion, but do lead willingly. It is very common for people to be in leadership positions because they've just kind of been shoved in there. That's why we have this term, particularly around Christian circles, of being voluntold to do something. It's often said that if you want something done, find the busiest person and ask them to do it. And what's kind of behind this idea of leading under compulsion is this reality that real leaders are in fact hard to find. We talk about that a lot here at this LifeWise Support Center, is that it's pretty rare to find somebody who really takes responsibility. Responsibility is rare these days. Somebody who's going to really own a situation, who's going to say, you know what, I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to point the finger and cast blame. I'm going to take responsibility. And it's even more rare to find someone who will take responsibility in that way for a whole group of people, to say, yes, I'm going to take responsibility for this project or this team, even though I don't have total control over everything, even though maybe I could point fingers. No, I'm going to take responsibility. I want to encourage you, if you're watching this, to be the type of person that will take responsibility. But I do want to warn you, if you are someone who takes responsibility in that way, you will just find yourself in leadership positions because it's so rare. And what we do want to avoid is leading out of compulsion, just because we've been shoved in there, just because we're a person who takes responsibility. And so a couple of things to do. Number one is being willing to say no. If you don't have the margin, if you don't have the time, you're not going to do a great job, then say, you know what, I have a lot of other responsibilities and I simply need to say no to this opportunity. However, perhaps more often the solution is finding the margin, is saying, you know what, I'm going to eliminate this, I'm going to make room over here, and yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it not under compulsion, but I am going to do it willingly because this is important and I'm going to step up. So that was the first of the three. The next two is said not to lead out of shameful gain. And so we don't want to. Leadership is not about what we get out of it. It's not about what we're going to gain. This can often be the case. People want to be in a leadership position for the salary or for the recognition or for whatever comes along with it. But we go into leadership to do so eagerly to serve others. I was a part of a board one time of a large nonprofit organization. And in a board meeting, someone on this board actually said at one point, "Hey, everybody, we know that the reason we're on this board is so that we will all use each other's businesses and buy each other's products." And it was a very cringy moment, but it kind of revealed that, yes, some people get into leadership situations just for the shameful gain, but that's not what leadership is about. Leadership is about serving. And finally, it says not to lead domineeringly. but to lead as examples. And that's another truth, is that leadership can sometimes become about control. It can become about power. It can become about wanting to be up in front and, domineering over others. But ultimately, again, leadership is primarily about being an example. I try to teach my own children about leadership. I have 4 boys and a girl, and I know there's a couple of my kids that I can see struggle with this, and will often put them in leadership positions with one another. And I remember being on a long car ride with this particular child and saying, "Hey, I'm working on this passage to preach a sermon. Let me talk to you about how you're doing with these things. How are you doing with leading willingly, not under compulsion?" And the child said, "I think I'm doing well there." I said, "How about leading not for shameful gain, but eagerly?" And the child said, "I think I'm doing well there." And I said, "How about not leading domineeringly, but as an example?" And the child said, "Oh, I got 2 out of 3." And so it can be this real temptation, but we need to understand that as a leader, we're there to serve. We're there as an example. There's a book out there called Leaders Eat Last. That's really what leadership is about. Sometimes people think of leadership as a pyramid or as a triangle with the leader at the top. And I tell people, yeah, you can think of it as a pyramid, but upside down, because the leader is the one who's ultimately serving the greatest number of people. And so I hope that's an encouragement to you as you consider leadership, leadership position, maybe even in the context of LifeWise Academy, to be sure to do so not under compulsion, but willingly, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, and not domineeringly, but as an example. And on the line for our LifeWise story, we have one of our LifeWise directors, and it's Jackie from Whitley County, Indiana. I remember when the conversation began in Whitley County, and this is a few years ago, and here we are with a program up and running, serving kids. Jackie, maybe tell us a little bit of your LifeWise story. How did you get connected?
Thanks for having me on. This is exciting to be able to share what's going on in Whitley County. So I first came on the scene when a friend of mine that worked at the Center for Whitley County Youth shared a video about LifeWise, and I watched it and immediately knew I wanted to be a part of it. I have 4 kids, and there's a 5-year gap between my third child and my fourth child, and so being in the elementary school with that gap of 5 years, we could see clearly that there was a lot of different things happening at the elementary
Hmm.
level, and not good things. And we had actually pulled him home for a few years because of high anxiety and different things going on. And so I was home, homeschooling him at that time, and watched the video, knew it was a need in our community, and was very excited. Met with her. She shared with me that a team had went over to Ohio, watched it live. So I was very excited to hear that they had seen it. They knew it was, real, true thing that was happening that was really good. Dove into kind of looking at the mission and seeing if it was, truly gospel centered, what some of the theology kind of things were behind it, all of that kind of, nerdy things. And met with her and was just like, "Yep, put me on the steering committee. I'm going to be part of it from now on." And so hopped on with the meetings, and yeah, just never looked back. So I actually had no desire to be the director. I had been a director at the YMCA and at another local nonprofit for a few years before I stayed home with my youngest, and just kind of thought that was it. I was never going to be a director again. I was happy just being home and being with the family. And 9 months before this had happened, God had really just um, quietly in my spirit one time during prayer just said, there's some ministry that I want you to look at. There's going to be a ministry. And I talked to my husband about it. I said, I think God's calling me into some kind of ministry. I don't know how or what or whatever. We started praying about it, and it was about 9 months later that this came about. And one of those moments where the Holy Spirit just, whew, I was like, okay. Then I got approached about being the director and said, we'll just pray about God bringing me somebody else. I don't really want to pick that back up, season of life. Um, and while nobody came, so it was very clear to everyone around me and to myself. After having enough conversations and people praying that this is where the Lord was calling me into. So, yeah, hit the ground running, got hired, boot camp 3 days later, luckily there was other people in boot camp that were in the same boat as I was. So, a little fire hydrant going on.
Oh yeah.
So we just we had a lot of similar moments with talking with those other ladies, and it was just really cool. The things that God confirmed, through His faithfulness over and over and over there. Those beginning times where you just feel like a fish out of water. He just was so faithful and bringing the right people at the right time, and just confirming that yes, this is where I want you, and this is what I'm going to do in your community. So
That is so great.
yeah.
That is the most classic LifeWise story in that. I mean, the number of times I've heard people say something just like you said, heard about it and looked into like, is this a real thing? Like,
Right.
and then, okay, it's a real thing, but is it really good? And then looking under the hood at the curriculum and all that, and then even the part of your story to say, well, I don't necessarily want to lead this thing, and it just being like, well, we need leadership, and it very much ties into what I was just talking about, right? About
Hmm.
there are very few real leaders who will take responsibility, and so they find themselves being asked, and so then you're in a position: am I able to do this willingly? And
Hmm.
what it sounds like is, of course, the answer's yes. And so I'm excited to hear some more of the story. I know that you had a particular story of impact from your community that you came prepared to share. Could you share it?
Yes, we had a first grade girl last year, and from the very beginning of class, she was just a spitfire. Asking all the questions. She was excited to learn. She was always excited to be at LifeWise. And about midway through the year, she started asking really good questions. And this one in particular time, she came back the next week and had talked to her mom about the story about Moses parting the Red Sea, and her she had watched The Prince of Egypt, I think is what it's called, the
Okay.
movie,
Yeah.
about Moses parting, and it did not match, the Prince of Egypt story.
Sure.
So it was very, Lisa, our teacher, just said, well, let's see what the Bible says. This is what the Bible says about it, and just to see her face and how she wants the truth. That's one thing about this first grader. She wants the truth. She doesn't, that's why she kept asking and pressing. And it was just really, really cool to watch that throughout the year. But the very end of the year, we did our survey with the students, and I was in the little group. We split them into three groups, and so I was in that rotation where they filled out their surveys. And first graders have a hard time writing, and
Sure.
articulating things. And so she had wrote out her survey, and she brought it over to me, and I was reading the last part of what she had learned, and she said she had learned about God. And she said I couldn't write the last part out, and I said, well, what do you want me to put? And she said that I want to be a LifeWise teacher when I grow up.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I just grabbed hold of her, and said, I would love to see you become a LifeWise teacher when you grow up. And she was all smiles and so excited. And she had shared that with others um, prior to her filling out that survey. But to hear her say that, and she wanted it written down on that survey, so that we all knew that's what she wanted to do. It was just really exciting. And to see, also just know that she's one of those kids that she wants the truth, so
Right.
she's going to ask and she's going to find out. And I thought this will be so neat. I mean, there's so many kids that you think of and you look at and you're like, I can't wait to see this child, in middle school, in high school, as an adult, like that they just continue. She'll be that one of those classes that goes all through,
Yeah.
all those 5 years, and then middle school, high school, Lord willing, if we can open up that door. And what a difference in how God will use her, and that she has that heart. It's like at such a young age to want to do that was really, really cool, precious.
Wow. What an encouragement, and how kind of God to give you that glimpse into what He's doing in uh, her little heart. And it is exciting to think about her and other students progressing through and being able to continue to invest in them and invest in them. We're at the
Mhm.
beginning of the school year. Uh, Jackie, what are you most excited about with LifeWise going into this school year?
I don't think there's anything that I'm not excited about. So to try to think of one, I guess we are opening sixth grade, our
Okay.
middle school up. So we have four feeder elementary schools, and we had kind of, set forth a plan that we would not be in the middle school until we had all 4 elementary schools going. However, last year we opened up our first fifth grade classes at 2 of our elementaries, and they just kind of thought they would go and continue in sixth
Sure.
grade. And so when they started bringing those conversations up at the end of the year, I didn't tell them, no, we're actually not doing that. I just
Right.
thought, oh Lord, I don't know if there's a way, open the store. And within a week, there was the meeting that we had with, they're called ambassadors of Whitley County, and
Mhm.
they brought forth that they had some dollars
All
that
right.
they would love to gift to LifeWise, if for sixth grade in particular. And it's like, okay, all right, well, that's moving a little bit faster than what we had anticipated. And of course, there's that worry of this last elementary that we haven't gotten into. We don't want them to feel forgotten, or any of those things. And so all of it was going on. All of it, we were praying about all of it. I said, we're going to pray for 2 weeks. We're just going to give it to the Lord and just really lay it before Him. And we got school approval for the middle school through superintendent and principal. Meeting happened. All doors were flung wide open. So
Wow.
got to go back and tell those fifth graders, guess what? You get to go to LifeWise next year. And there was a lot. I thought I should have videoed that. Nate Lundquist would be very disappointed in me right now.
Yeah, he would. Come on, get that
I
on video.
missed that opportunity. I did not know that they were gonna just celebrate that way. So they were so excited. So I am really excited to see what God's going to do in our middle school, because it is one thing to see these little, first, second, third, fifth graders learning, but man, having I have, excuse me, 3 older kids that have graduated, but one in middle school, and we see what they go through, we see the challenges, that we see the things that are happening in their life, and that God's, that He's doing this, and He's opened the door and saying, now, right now, we're going to do this now. So I am very excited to see who He's going to bring, what He's going to do, all of it. So I think that's probably my most excited thing
Yeah.
that I'm ready to watch. Yeah.
Well, that is exciting. It's exciting to see the growth. Exciting to think about. Yes, that they're at a different developmental stage in that
Mhm.
age group. So, man, I'm excited to hear more stories coming out of Whitley County. And Jacie, I can't thank you enough for your service, for the sacrifices you make on a daily basis, for your leadership, and also thank you for being on the Vision Cast.
Yes, it's a joy. Thank you, Joel.
All right, everybody, that's it for the Vision Cast. We will see you next week.